I've met a major from the Gurkha regiment. In fact, I worked for a major in the Gurkha regiment once.
They're good people. I like the Gurkhas.
Yeah, very nice people. Yeah,
they're top people. We see quite a few in Basingstoke, and I always say good morning, namaste to them, and they're always very pleased when you acknowledge them and speak to them. I've always got a lot of time for the Nepalese. So anyway, so I could go on and on. I mean, it was so good trekking in the mountains in Nepal. Yeah. If anyone's ever gets a chance to do that, they must take it. It's quite brilliant. It's beautiful scenery. It's quite, you can do it slowly, so you don't have to be I mean, obviously it was hard work and I was young then, but I recommend that. So from Nepal flew back to Delhi, and then we went up to what do they call it? Oh, I'm getting old. I should get my photos out. Up to northern India to Dal Lake up in Srinagar, where you can't go anymore.
Yeah. If you've got some photographs of your trek in the mountains, if you can email some photographs to me, half a dozen. What I'll do is I'll tag them on the end of this Zoom chat, and then people can have a look at the photographs as well.
Right, they're old photos. I'll see if they'll scan up. I'll do it at work. Try and do it tomorrow at work if I can. I'll take
that's it. Do it in between patients.
Run out. So, whilst I'm treating patients with one hand, Kevin.
That's it. Yeah, because you're very clever. I've been there a few times. I know what you can do.
I can multitask. So, but we had an amazing time. I feel so sad for the Indians who live up in Srinagar, because tourism has obviously stopped for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And all those beautiful houseboats, and they were. I mean, the houseboats were amazing on the lake.
Yeah.
And we could swim in the lake. I mean, there were such amazing houseboats. You could run a hot bath.
Wow.
They obviously had some wood burner. They could heat up the water for you.
Yeah.
So that was a great experience.
Yeah.
And then from there we flew to Hong Kong to see friends who lived there, and that was good. That was before independence. And then we got a slow boat from there into China.
Oh, right, okay. It won't say too much about China.
No, China was all right. We're in the China before China got going. So this was in April, May '89.
Yeah.
And they were mostly in, it was extraordinary. They was mostly in their blue and green pajama suits, the Chairman Mao pajama suit.
Yeah.
And we were quite a rare breed of Western tourists. But it was a time of all the protests.
Right, yeah.
So one of my sad experiences was the fact that I was in Tiananmen Square the day before the tanks, or 2 days before the tanks came in.
I was just about to say, were you over there when the Tiananmen Square was happening? Yeah, so you were there the day before. Wow. Yeah. Was there anything going on there the day before then, Martin? The day before Tiananmen
Well, I
Square?
think it was the Thursday. Right, I think it was the Thursday we were there, and I think tanks came on Saturday.
Right.
Yeah, so it was full of people. We went in there, we wandered around, we were talking. Well, you couldn't really talk to people because our Chinese wasn't good and their English wasn't good, but there was a lovely party atmosphere, like a festival, lots of tents, and it was, it was really special. But we didn't stay in Beijing because everything was shut, so we couldn't see the Forbidden Palace and all the monuments. So I think on the Friday we headed off to Xi'an, to the terracotta soldiers.
Oh wow! I bet that was an experience.
That was an experience. So we left Beijing, and when we left, I remember the train station was ringed with police. And I can remember we got the train, and then we found out, I think on the Sunday in Xi'an, that there had been because we didn't know the scale of it, we only knew that there had been it had been sorted out. So and Xi'an was fine. There was no trouble there. The terracotta soldiers are amazing.
I bet.
Recommended. And that was fun because we're cheap travelers. We went on a local tour, not a Western tour, and it was all in Chinese.
Yeah.
And I think it cost about £4. and we didn't really know what we were looking at. And we stopped about 4 places en route to the terracotta soldiers, and I'm still to this day not quite sure what I looked at. But I believe one of them, which was amazing, was the grave of the emperor who had the terracotta soldiers commissioned.
Ah, right.
And he is about 7 kilometers away from where the terracotta soldiers are. So it's quite likely they've only uncovered a fraction of the army. It's quite likely that between him and where the terracotta soldiers are, it's full of terracotta soldiers as well.
Yeah. Sorry, Martin. Someone was just trying to ring me, so I just switched it off.
That's all right. So, but I remember that I found amazing to think that they haven't uncovered only a fraction of what's there.
Yeah.
He must have been quite a megalomaniac. He must have been Trump of his day.
Oh gosh, yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Completely obsessed with himself. And then when we got to terracotta soldiers, that's just amazing. It is everything you can think of and more. So that was cool. That was wonderful. And then from there, we went to a place called Chengdu.
Right.
And that's sort of in the middle of China. And we went and visited a hospital. That was interesting. And I remember the pharmacy department in the hospital was a cupboard. And then the sort of homeopathic bit of the hospital in those days was sort of the major bit. And they're pounding up their roots and their rat skins and God knows what. They use
lots of weird things, don't they?
Oh, amazing, Kevin. Honestly, Kevin, the Western pharmacy, I mean, we are talking over 30 years ago, was a sort of broom cupboard, and then they had all the stuff. And we went around the wards, and there was acupuncture, people stabbed all over with needles. And then rather weirdly, a patient on a ventilator in a corridor, which I found quite interesting.
Right, okay, yeah.
Having care, but I don't know what happened to him, poor fella. But my claim to fame in Chengdu is that there was a protest about the uprising, about the stuff in Beijing. So I and another Westerner went out to see what was going on, and there was the police, and there were all these rioters and protesters, and we somehow ended up in the middle of it.
Oh no!
So, yeah, no, it's not good. I just reset myself.
Yeah.
So at the we were by a government hotel, and they were saying, "Get inside, get inside." And so we hopped into the hotel as the rioters charged the police, and then they surrounded the hotel, and then the gates of the hotel were wobbling, and there were all about 30 security guys with sticks looking very nervous. And then as the gates came down and they rushed in, we turned and legged it, went round the back of the hotel. There was a wall that must have been 10 foot high, and we went over that, and we were on the banks. We were on the banks of a river, and then we went all along the riverbank in mud, all the way back to our hotel, which was we could see sort of about 2 miles away.
Wow!
Anyway, my wife told me off. That was. I'm not a brave person, just a bit stupid at times.
I'm probably the same as you. I'm not very brave at all. I'd rather turn around and walk away from anything. But,
yes, I mean, I didn't go out looking for trouble. I went out just to see what was happening. We just happened to wander into the wrong bit.
Wrong bit, yeah.
So anyway, we
go on.
I'd say we carried on in China. It was amazing in those days. There was no security. You just travelled, did your own thing, went to the railway station. Everything was in Chinese. You basically you would write down where you wanted to go on a piece of paper by copying out the letters. And then just hand the piece of paper to the railway person, who would then, and the money, they used abacuses in those days, not calculators. So they flip the abacus at rapid speed and then shout at you in Chinese, and you'd look blank, and then they wave the abacus at you and you'd look at them, and then basically you hold your hand out with your money, and they would take the money off you and give you a change and give you what you bought, but you hadn't got a clue what it cost.
I was going to say, how do you know what they're actually taking? It might have cost next to nothing, but charge you a fortune.
You have to. I trust people, and I think they were honest.
Yeah,
they were good, honest people.
Yeah.
But China was great. We went to the restaurants, couldn't read the menu, so what we do is just take the waiter around looking at what other people were eating. and then say that looks good. We'll have one of them and one of them, and we'd get what we'd
Oh,
ordered. I'm sure
brilliant.
I know I ate rat, I think, and I know I ate frog and stuff.
Oh,
So
yeah. No, thank you.
don't mind. Um, and then we carried on. We went to, I think, where else we went? We went to the classic Chinese scenery in is it Guilin, maybe? I can't remember, the famous those Sugarloaf Mountains where Nixon met Mao. All that
Oh,
area.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah, that was brilliant.
yeah.
And then from there we then got a boat out back to Hong Kong
Hmm.
and went back to Hong Kong.
So after
Um,
doing all your travels and you came back to this country, did you make a decision then that you were not going to go into nursing, or had you already thought, I want to do something different?
Oh, not really. Not really. It kind of happened. So when we came back, I actually went off. Yeah, there's more strings to my bow. I went off to Ipswich, Suffolk College, and I did a year's course in occupational health nursing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so so health and safety stuff. So all the stuff about making the workplace safe, ergonomics, PPE, all the, this would be now the COVID stuff. It would all be to do, try to keep staff safe, all that sort of thing. So I did a year's course, and then I nursed on the surgical ward at the weekends to help pay to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did nursing, and then I got a job at Suffolk Hospital for 4 years as the occupational health nurse.
So
I've done a lot of things.
yeah. So what made you then decide or think about going into osteopathy? I actually said it. Did you see that? I actually said
You said it very well. I missed the patient. So the occupational health was great. You're helping people, but you write reports that never actioned, and you're trying to enforce it. People fight. Management don't want to spend the money, and people are quite happy to find a way to get around things, and then they don't want anyone interfering normally with where they're getting around things. So so you try to change working practice, but most people have sort of worked out to make it work for them, and they don't really want some do-gooder changing things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I missed the patient. So, and then my best mate's wife, his father was an osteopath, and he said, "Why didn't you consider osteopathy?" And I thought, well, if I stay in nursing, I'll end up in administration because that's the natural progression, and I actually want to be with patients. Because in those days you didn't have specialist nurses who specialized in like wound care or diabetes or stuff. There wasn't those sort of roles in those days.
Yeah.
And that's probably, if I stayed in nursing, I would have become a specialist nurse, I think.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
so
So when you decided to do osteopathy, am I right in thinking that there's a big like university or place in London where you study at?
there's a few colleges in London. So I went to what was called the British College of Naturopathy and Osteopathy up at Swiss Cottage, Finchley Road. But there's a British School of Osteopathy, there's a European school, and now there's a school in Oxford, there's one in Bournemouth. So there's a few. So I went to probably the original one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a four-year course. So, and it's a hard course. I treated it like a job, really. Although I was a student again, I treated it like a job. So I rarely missed a lecture, and lectures started at 9 o'clock and often went through till 6.
Yeah.
And then it's a huge practical training. So you, from the second year onwards, you're treating patients. And in fact, it's a good earner for the college because the patients pay a small sum to come, like £10, but you don't, as a student, you don't get the money. It just goes to the cost of the college.
Yeah, sure.
So when you leave the college, you've been treating patients. You've had your own list for 2 years of people. So it's a good practical training, and then you do, well, the training's great. You do anatomy, not for the faint-hearted, but it's a privilege to have done all the anatomy and dissection. So I haven't got a queasy stomach. I find it fascinating. So we went to University College Hospital for dissection, and we had our bodies to dissect and stuff. It was good. physiology, disease pathology, biochemistry, exercise physiology. It was a good training.
So you're
That's
really
4 years.
you're covering every point really that you
Oh yeah,
you need to know.
You cover everything. Well, basically, I'm a musculoskeletal movement specialist, or try to be. I've got to try and work out that it's very important that you can try and work out that something is musculoskeletal and isn't something else, such as infection, such as a bony pathology, such as a abnormality. You need to work out that what you're dealing with is something that can be, if you can, obviously you can't change cancers and things, but if you can identify them early, then you can help patients. And I've certainly helped patients over the years. And sometimes you see things you're suspicious of, and then I'll refer them off to the doctor.
Yeah.
Because you can't change what happens to people, but you can hopefully help intervene early for them.
What is the recognition now between the National Health Service and osteopathy? Because once upon a time, if I ever went to the doctor about my problem with my hip, they would never say, "Oh, go and see such and such," or whatever. We'll send you to physio. Is there more of a recognition now for alternative therapies and things like that?
Probably not. So when I first qualified in '99 as an osteopath, we actually had arrangements with the local GPs to treat patients.
Right.
And we charged a nominal sum, and they could have 5 sessions with us, and you could even get 10 sessions if you needed more. And that worked very well because we're actually cheaper. No one realizes, but in the NHS, so if you get referred for physio, there's a cost. And people don't see that cost because they presume, but there's a cost. Everything costs. So a session with a physio will cost X.
Yeah.
And that is actually probably more in terms of health service terms than it would be to see me privately. But obviously that's someone's money as opposed to. So we used to build the GP surgery and get paid, and it was about 40% of what we charged, and I think we gave good service. Then it stopped because the Labour government didn't want to go down that route. So it was a sort of so I'm not going to get political because that's always a muddly area. But so that stopped. So we don't. So traditionally, doctors learn about physio when they're training. So that's the go-to. And when they're in the hospital, that's the go-to group of people. And physios are great. Very good bunch of people, very experienced. So we're all just trying to make people move better, and they're better at some things than we are, and we're better at something. And so, I help some people, I don't help everyone, and sometimes physios will do a better job than me. So I would just always do my best for people. But yes, it's training. In Hazelmere, we've got a very good relationship with the local doctors in the area. So people do come to us. If often they come because we can see them quicker and give them more time. Because we have the luxury of more time.
I first started using an osteopath. Oh crikey, how many years ago was it? It must have been back in the 80s, I should think. I hurt my back at work, and it was when Kurt Jaeger had the practice at Electra House, and I couldn't walk down the stairs in what was the old co-op at the top of Way Hill.
Right.
And there was 2 carpenters, and they lifted me up and carried me downstairs, and they sat me in my car, and they said, "Drive to the hospital." Well, I had a job to move either foot. And then as I was driving up the road, I thought, there's an osteopath there because the hospital will be shut anyway, the outpatients. So I managed to drive round to the back where Kurt's practice was then, just up past the station. And somebody happened to come out as I pulled up outside. I said, "Have you come out of the osteopath?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Could you get the person out?" So Kurt came out and saw me, helped me in. It turned out I'd slipped a disc. And for the whole, he said, "I can't really do much for you at the moment." He said, "Because everything is just inflamed." And he said, "You're going to have hot and cold presses over the weekend. Come back and see me on Monday," which I did. And after a bit of treatment, he said to me, I'm not going to be able to put the disc back in because the area around the disc is too tight. It's still under spasm, which I was relieved about because someone told me over the weekend via a phone call that it's one of the most painful things you can have done. And the weird thing is, I think when he said he wasn't going to put it back in, I completely relaxed. And there was this sort of, I can only describe it as a sort of a push, and there was this slight popping sound. And he took the chance of putting the disc back in. He said, because my whole body was relaxed when he
Enough
said,
to get it.
yeah. And it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was very painful for, as you can imagine, for some time. But that was my first experience of going to an osteopath. And whenever I've had an issue,
He was
sorry, go on.
Yeah, he was very experienced. Wily old dog, Kurt.
Yeah.
He's been retired 10 years now.
Yeah.
So,
now, of course, Andrew,
yeah,
Andrew was working for him. And if ever I phoned up to speak to, or go to see Kurt, I couldn't because everybody wanted to see Kurt. So then I started going to see Andrew, who I got on with very, very well. But again, it's the same situation. Everybody wants to see Andrew. But I was lucky in the fact that when I had started having problems with my hip, you know Cynthia Walder very well. Cynthia said, go and see Martin Coleman. And then I mentioned to one of my clients that I was going to see the osteopath in Hazelmere, and I never mentioned your name. And she said, oh, go and see Martin Coleman. And I'm thinking, this guy's got to be pretty good.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I do my best.
Well, the thing for me, Martin, was the recommendations were there, and that's always very important for me. If somebody else, it's like my business, painter and decorator, recommendation is the best form of advertising.
100%. Yeah.
And coming
100%.
to see you, I felt in the first couple of minutes with you just talking to you, I felt very comfortable and relaxed. The one thing that really shook me was when you were doing the first part of physical examination, and you were something to put your thumbs on something on my back, and you just asked me to lean forward a little bit, and you said, you've got a problem there. And I thought, how could you work that out in about 30 seconds? I thought, oh my God, this is just unbelievable.
Well, no, it's just, basically you spend your whole time palpating normal, and then you can see abnormal. I mean, the key to osteopathy is palpation. Well, history of the patient is vital, and then palpation, feeding the tissues, and you build up a memory bank of what normal feels like, and then you can start feeling tight points, trigger points, abnormal movement. You can see, and then you try and help it, and you just try to restore as good movement as possible, and let the body do. The body does the work, really, from the inside. You just poke it in the right direction. Yeah. So,
you know, the treatment I got from you was, I can't fault it. It was fantastic. But when the very first time you said to me, right, I think what we'd do, Kevin, we'd do some acupuncture. I'm thinking, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt.
Generally speaking, the acupuncture doesn't hurt. It only hurts when the patient, it doesn't work if the patient doesn't want it. I find that if the patient's fighting it, it doesn't seem to have a therapeutic benefit. It's very interesting. I think if they go too tense, and the muscles get too acidic and angry, and it doesn't seem to have what you're after, basically. But
you know, it was, you know, what the treatment you gave me, I thought was top notch. So if anybody wants any osteopathy doing, please go and see Martin. Please go and see Martin, because I can highly recommend him. And it's brilliant. Martin, I think we've got virtually
thank you very much. Yeah, I've been trying Cynthia for ages.
So I think we've probably got to the end of the chat for today. If there's something else we can chat about in the future, that'd be great.
No, well, I can regale you with stories of travels for forever and a day. I've been lucky. I have been to South America as well. I haven't travelled. I haven't done extensive travelling. I'd like to travel more. But I think I recommend it to anyone. You just have to turn up and get on with it, basically.
Yeah, it sounds like you've travelled more of the world than you have this country.
No, I've done quite a bit. I've done a fair bit. And there's
Yeah.
well, you can do this country, Kevin. You can do this country when you're older, and you don't, when insurance is prohibitive as you get older and stuff. So, there's lots of this country I want to see still.
Yeah, me too.
Haven't
Me too.
haven't been to Liverpool. Haven't been to Manchester. So,
Yeah. And they've got two
I
of the
want to
worst
get a
football
camper van and get around
and,
Wales.
and as you and I know, Martin, they've got two of the worst football teams in the country.
100%, 100% the worst.
Anyway, Martin,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And
It's a pleasure. It's lovely talking to you.
yeah, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and everybody else when they listen to it and watch it, they enjoyed it as well.
I hope so. And as I say, I can regale you. But my family, that was only half the family, I can tell you.
Yeah, we'll save that one for another day.
Another day.
Yeah. All right, Martin.
Right.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
I'll do those photos as well. Cheers,
Oh,
buddy.
thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot.
Cheers,
Bye.
bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.